Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening on our session of Graduate Power. Tonight we'll be featuring the MPA-PPA program, and we are fortunate to have an alum with us this evening, Julius Caranda, and the MPA-PPA Director, Dr. Elaine Liu. So thank you both of you for joining us. Just a little bit of background before we get started with the questions and answers. Julius Caranda is currently a senior compliance officer at the New York City Council. His passion for learning led him to co-founding Uplift Communities, an education startup based in New York City. He is also an adjunct professor at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. He has worked in banking, cybercrime, fintech, public policy, and internal audit. Julius holds a bachelor's in criminal justice and a master's in public administration from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Thank you so much, Julius, for joining us this evening. And we are also happy to have Dr. Elaine Liu. She is a professor and director of the MPA-PPA program in the Department of Public Management at John Jay College. Her primary field of study is fiscal policy and performance accountability. Her recently co-authored book, Public Performance Budgeting, Principles and Practice, is published by Taylor and Francis. Beyond her research, she's very engaged with several professional associations in various capacities, including as a commissioner of NASPA's Commission on Peer Review and Accreditation, and serves on the board of 3 editorial boards. And I think you're the editor of a journal now too, right? She's committed to enhancing social mobility of students into the middle class and beyond, and promoting leadership among people from all walks of life, particularly those underrepresented in the leadership of public service. Thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Thank you for having us.
No, thank you for coming. So Julius, we'll start with you. How's that? So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, including when you graduated and about your current position that you hold.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. D'Agostino, and thank you, Elaine, as well, for being on the panel with me. Thank you for John Jay. Well, if I remember how I started, correct? Is that so, I mean, we were talking a little bit about this before. So I started at John Jay in 2007. That's started there for my undergrad. Born and raised in New York City. So I, naturally chose CUNY like so many other city-born kids. So started at CUNY, did criminal justice. I think once I graduated in about 2011, I'm still unsure exactly what I wanted to do career-wise. I took the NYPD exam like so many other John Jay students, but I wasn't fully vested in going into law enforcement. So I decided to apply for the MPA program, and luckily I was able to get in. But I was still, so this is right after undergrad. So 2011, I went right into the program in 2012. So really there was no real gap in between undergrad to graduate school. So I was still figuring out what I wanted to do career-wise. Luckily enough, I still had the wonderful Professor Peters, Judy Lynn Peters, who I still speak to this day. Took her class, I think it was 700, and she pointed, and I asked her one day, I said, hey, Professor Peters, what internships can I get? And she pointed me to Marianne Triest, who was the former head of the career department for John Jay. I think she specialized or really worked with the MPA program. And then I met with Marianne, and she gave me I think it was a big sheet of paper. It was like, I don't know, it felt like 200 or so jobs, and I kind of just looked through them and picked whatever looked good, and ended up picking the city council. And then I ended up, and there was a class for it. Professor D'Agostino, she happened to be the one leading that class. So this is not our first time meeting. This is, even though it was probably about 10 years ago, which I took the class and did the internship with the city council. And then, yada, 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 after several jobs in corporate and banking and things like that. In 2018, I was reached back out to by my supervisor during my internship, Charles Davis, who, reached out to me and said, hey, there's a position here for you at the city council, because we kept in contact. And that's how I got to where I'm at now. And then from there, I was able to go on that. I'm a professor at BMCC, founded an education consulting company and things like that. But that's a little bit about my journey.
Julius, thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, I'm a bit biased towards the internship course, but I'm glad that you brought it up. And what's also interesting is to hear that, Charles Davis, your supervisor, reached out to you after you had completed your internship. And I think that's really important to hear, for other students to hear, because although you might do an internship and it might be unpaid and it might not automatically lead to a position, right? If you do a good job and you're on someone's radar and something opens up, right, they reach out to you. So I think that's an excellent, thank you for sharing the story. So Dr. Liu, and hopefully we'll talk more about the internship later on also, but Dr. Liu, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what motivates you to be the director of the MPA-PPA program.
Let me unmute myself. So I'm very much, I consider myself a scholar for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of colleagues in my department, including you, asked me to step forward. And after my full professorship, I did do what I promised everybody to do. So put my name forward. And I think this is a good use of my time because I can connect the scholarship with what's going on in the classroom. And that's actually one of the reasons that I feel rewarded in this experience. The other thing that I feel strongly about is how to help students. And for those who don't know, John Jay is a very diverse campus, and our MPA program probably is one of the most diverse programs in the United States. We have about 30, a third of the students are African American, and another third of the students are Hispanic background, and about 10% Asian, and the rest of the people all in the last 1/3. So it's a very, very diverse population. So I can see myself in them. I used to be those students who come from, regular families and have a desire to pursue a better life. And I can see myself in those, and I hope that I can create a better educational journeys for them, just like I was provided when I was a student. So that's what I enjoy, and I encourage everybody who are thinking about professorship, the career post professorship. I think being a director is not a bad way to go.
Thanks, Yi. Thanks for serving and for giving back, right? And it's great. It's just as important as the scholarship that we do. So thanks for sharing this story. Just to go back to Julius. Julius, you spoke about the internship, but what else stands out to you the most about your MPA degree in your experience? And it could be anything, courses, professors, an instance, a speaker, anything that really stands out to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I had so many great professors. Like I mentioned, Judy Lynn Peters, who I still have a relationship with today. She's, she's tough in terms of her. She's tough in terms of how she conducts her class. But I think she definitely was one of those people that pushed me towards excellence. I think I think overall, what the program did for me was it gave more professionalism, right? Undergrad, I think, was almost, it was there to lay a foundation in terms of education and knowing how to think and be logical. I had philosophy classes, but what the MPA program gave me was an insight into the real world, right? Into how it is to really maybe even they're literally, I write memos to today, and I use the similar formats, or I'm able to pull my knowledge from classes I've taken in the MPA program. So what it gave me, it just gave me that extra level where I can go and walk into any room and feel competent and feel like, hey, even though I may not know every single detail about what's going on into this, and I've worked in corporate, I currently work in government, I've worked, in different capacities, in different roles. I do education right now as well. So it gave me that level of professionalism that I think is, we don't necessarily get all the time in undergrad. You get, your stuff, but you don't get like what it's like to really engage in real time.
Thanks for highlighting that, Julius. So the professional skills, so beyond the knowledge, but the professional skills that are also transferable in the workplace are just as important. Thanks, Julius. So Dr. Liu, you mentioned a little bit before, but if you could share a little bit about some information about the composition of the students in the program. Are they all full-time? Are they part-time? What are their goals? Things that kind of stand out to you.
Yeah, sure. I think one thing that's unique about our MPA program is that most of our students are working full-time, and many of them are working multiple jobs. So I think they are very, dedicated student in a way that they really have to allocate their time out for studies, in addition to life, in addition to job, in addition to kids, in addition to military obligations, you name it. So I guess, this is where, this is a population that John Jay served. And when I was hired at the John Jay, one of the things that I remember is that people tell me we are educating for the future of the city. And that's exactly how I feel after 14 years of services with John Jay. So I guess, this is who we are. And I, Julius was talking about his journey, and I think that, his journey actually mirrors many of other students in our program. And, Julius did it. And I think one of the things that I learned from his journey is that you just have to stay on track, stay put to stay on track. There will be challenges, there would be distractions, there would be things coming up that may prevent you from doing what you should be doing. But guess what? Stay on track. Stay on track. We do offer tons of other formats of studies, and not only in person, but also online, but also Saturdays, and most classes are in evenings. So we understand the population that we serve, and we try to make it manageable for you guys. So I guess this is what our program stands out.
Thanks. So, our students are definitely persistent, not just in graduate studies, but I think at John Jay, and you've captured that quite accurately. Thank you, Dr. Liu. So Julius, what were some of the most challenging aspects that you encountered when you were completing your degree?
Yeah, definitely. I think Dr. Liu touched on it when she mentioned having to work, how many students work and doing the program at the same time. And I think that was probably one of my biggest challenges, because I started the program right after undergrad, and I was working during undergrad, but I was working part-time. Once I started the program, I actually did pick up several full-time jobs, and that was hard to balance. At one point, so I started the program in 2012, right? I didn't graduate until 2018. And it wasn't, I took breaks. I had to, take 1 or 2 classes per semester because I was trying to balance, working full-time, working in these new industries and things like that, and having to make class. One of my first jobs after undergrad was at JP Morgan, but we were in Jersey City, and I lived in Queens. So I would have to travel from Queens to Jersey City in the morning, then go back into the city in Midtown, take night classes, then go back to Queens at night. So at the end of the day, I was exhausted, right? and still having to balance my my full-time work and still balance giving papers and exams and things like that to professors, and so that was a challenge. But like as Dr. Wu said, I stayed the course, I stayed consistent. Even though I had to tell myself, hey, even though I'm taking this break, I may take this semester off or 2 semesters off. I make sure I come back. I think at one point I changed course. I think at one time I wanted to do the forensic accounting thing, and then I was like, all right, this is a lot. I got to go back and go back and get a whole bunch of accounting credits and things like that. So, but I just know I wanted to finish, and even though it took me 6 years for a 2-year program, I did, right? But it was challenging.
Thanks, Julius. Again, you persisted, you finished, you navigated it, and you got it all done. And you're now working with City Council. So congrats to you. It's great to hear that. Dr. Liu, so Julius spoke about some of the challenges that he encountered, and you mentioned some of them also, but what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that students enrolled in the program encounter? Is it the time management? Is it balancing the work and life? What are the things do students encounter?
Yeah, I would say time management is definitely number one. And the other thing is how to make a time for the programs that MPA program, the extracurricular activities that the MPA program is offering. Again, that's a time management, because you have a job and and you have a school, then how much time can you dedicate it to, say, internship? That's really a challenge. But I guess the message I give to all is, look at Julia's journey. At sometimes you just need to take the leap of faith. Maybe spend a little bit more time with internship, and to see whether or not it opens other doors for you. And I totally understand that's very challenging for someone who relies on X number of jobs. But I think you will be pleasantly surprised if you really give yourself the chance. And we do offer different kinds of internships and mentorships. And recently, Professor D'Agostino knows we're working with the New York City more. We have what we call the John Jay Public Service Fellowship Program. Basically, the rising stars of the New York City employees are connecting with our students and provide career career advice and be engaged with our students. And these are the opportunities that we do offer. And I wanted to broadcast it to everybody. Please take advantage of those opportunities. They are there, and you will be pleasantly surprised.
Thanks, Dr. Liu. I wanted to give Julius, if you wanted to say anything to that, because we did talk a little bit off screen before this started about that. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to add in on there or not.
Yeah, no, I think that just in general, I think that taking it, one thing I would say, because I mentioned it earlier, and I was thinking about it, really took me 6 years to finish a 2-year program. But one of the advantages that did have doing that is I built a lot of relationships at John Jay, right? I started school in 2007, and I was able to build relationships on the undergrad side and then also on the graduate level. And I think that made my time there more precious, because I can still go and interact with professors and staff and colleagues that I met along the way. So even people that I might have started the program with in 2012, they may have graduated in a 2-year time, but then I was able to come back in 2016, 2017, 2018, and still maintain these relationships.
Yeah, and I just wanted to underscore the value of those professional skills that are sometimes developed in the classroom and sometimes outside, such as in an internship, and taking the time and making the time and seeing the value in those opportunities that are offered when you do enroll in the MPA, PPA. And so it's not just the coursework, but it's these other things and opportunities, as Dr. Liu was emphasizing, that are also offered and just as valuable, if not more. So Julius, what do you wish you knew prior to applying and completing the MPA, PPA program that would have somehow helped you in hindsight, right?
Hindsight. I think if I would have, I think I probably just would have, maybe carved out the time to maybe just focus on it. I think that, I was trying to balance both with the full-time work and taking classes, but I also jumped into it right after undergrad. So I didn't really have. I was trying to do both. I was pretty much learning two new things at once. I was learning how to navigate space in corporate America, essentially, and then also navigating graduate studies, both of which I've never been in before, right? So I think I would have given myself either some time. I'm not saying, and if you definitely feel that you're, like, if for anyone, students that are listening, prospective students, if they feel that they are ready, right after undergrad to jump right into it, by all means. But I think for me, I might have given myself some time, maybe about a year or two, to get into, get comfortable working full time, and then say, all right, so now let me take on this additional responsibility of going into graduate school.
That's a great insight. Thanks for sharing that. And so just shifting a little bit in terms of Dr. Liu, what skills and knowledge, or what are the major skills and knowledge perhaps that students obtain in the program, and how do they get these skills and knowledge? Is it through courses, internships, trainings?
Yeah, sure. I think you mentioned the top items on a long list of where people get their skills, right? And I think at a fundamental level, the faculties, the courses are the most fundamental. And I think I have confidence in my faculty members, and we are ranked 48th right now in the nation, and we are up 20% in terms of ranking compared to 3 years ago. So what I'm saying is the courses, the faculty members are definitely the foundations of where they get the knowledge from. Now, knowledge are different than skills, right? So we do have skills, taught in the classroom, but we don't stop there. Our skills are also taught via various activities, like the career fairs, right? Like the writing coach programs, as well as the mock interviews, for instance, and Julius mentioned the professionalism. And I think this is something that we also begin to realize more and more, that is something that we should and we could provide to our students, right? So knowledge, through those extra curriculum activities, and on the top of that, we try to build a synergy between faculty to students. And one of the things we do, Professor D'Agostino knows, is the research assistant. We pair students with the faculty members and working on research projects together. Now, this is a wonderful way, in my mind, to build synergies among faculties and students, as well as getting things done for professors and getting a beautiful line on your resume saying, I worked on this project and I know how to use Excel, Stata, or SPSS, whatever that you use. So I think there are many ways the knowledge and the skills are taking place. They are in the classroom, they are outside the classroom. But don't forget, these things also are shared among students. Because, as I mentioned before, most of our students are working. And I think this is a tremendous amount of resources right there among the students. Learn from each other. And I think, these are different ways that we bring things together, not to mention, between myself, between Dr. D'Agostino, we do all kinds of invited lectures. We work with ICMA, we work with a National Forum of Black Public Administrators, and the Hispanic Local Government Network, for instance. We bring all these people into John Jay, give guest lectures to our students, and sometimes train our faculty as well. So this is a community where we bring things together. And I cannot pinpoint, where it will happen in terms of knowledge and skill, but I can tell you it happens in different ways and at different stages. Does that address the question?
Yeah, I think you summed it up when you said community. It's just a very dynamic community where there's a lot going on, and you can tap into that community and learn and share. So, yeah, that's
we
great.
are large enough to
Mhm,
accommodate people's needs or whatever they wanted to learn, but we are also flexible enough to accommodate your desire or personal schedule.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's awesome. So Julius, and maybe I don't know if you are or you aren't, but if you were in the position to hire new graduates, what skills and knowledge provided by the program would you be looking for in a prospective new hire?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, well, in particular, I think public administration could be like a pretty broad term, but I think specifically, I'm assuming most people that are in the program are at least from New York City, or at least in and around the city, right? At least maybe sometimes people, I guess, they may be from another state and things like that. But I think knowing how government works is important. Not just even for, because I work in city council, obviously, so work for a government agency, government body, but knowing how government works is so important. It's so critical, because and just even if you don't even want to do public administration, but if you want to do business, what people don't realize, like if you wanted to open up a gym, let's say, you have to go to the Department of Buildings. You have to, if you want to open up a restaurant, you have to deal with the health department. You have to know how government works. So I think taking any classes that really understand and do knowing about the intricacies of government agencies and how things are, like even things like, I do some of the stuff that I do on the side. I work with schools a lot, and knowing about how to fill out an RFP or bid for a contract. I remember taking a class at John Jay about contract bidding, and knowing about, or even knowing about what's his name, Boss Tweed back in the day, and how they were like the corrupt government officials, and how those changes have made those policies and changes have been implemented to the city legislature to make sure those things don't happen. Even there's sometimes stuff that still does, right? If you watch the news or read the newspapers enough, but knowing how government works is so critical. I think just regardless if you want to be in public life, or you want to go into business, or you want to go into tech, this stuff is important.
That's great. Thanks for bringing that up. Just knowing how government works and realizing that public administration is quite much woven throughout our everyday lives, right? And being aware of that is just as very important. So thanks for highlighting that. So Dr. Liu, where do students often end up working after obtaining their degree? Where did they end up? In government, nonprofit, private sector? What are they doing?
Well, that's a really good question. And luckily, we have a very good staff that tracks everybody done. And we have a 90% of a response rate in terms of the employment survey. So I'm confidently tell you this, which is 1/3 of our students work in city, county, and other local governments. This is the largest category, followed by private sector. 24% of them, followed by 11% in the state and the regional government, and about 8% in federal government. Nonprofits is about 18% of our students' employment status. So as you can see, just to go back to Julia's point, we have enough students working in the government setting, and knowing how government work, it definitely helps. But MPA also allows people to access an extensive list of career paths, not only just governments. As you can see here, private sector is 25%. So I just hope people will re-examine the value of getting a MPA degree, and not to forget, not only you will be getting a job, but also you are getting into a position where your ideals and ideas of social governance about government could be realized and implemented through your own work. To me, this is really a very good benefit, not only for yourself, but also for others in terms of getting an MPA degree. Does that address the question?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome answer. And I would just add, just joining a group of well-connected alum, like throughout the city at different levels of government and also the private sector, I think is just as valuable and important. So thank you. So one last question each before we wrap this up. Julius, if you could give one piece of advice to prospective students, what would that be? Your words of wisdom.
One piece of advice. I would say, and this is going to sound so cheesy,
No.
but literally, like, stay a student. Meaning, and when I say that is literally never feel that you can't learn something. I think Dr. Luz mentioned it, right? You can even learn from your other classmates. There's so many things that I've learned sitting in the classroom with someone and just having a conversation because they worked in an industry or worked a job or did something that I did. And I think about what's great about the MPA program, it's not like undergrad where pretty much everyone's around your same age, right? It's a vast age range and people coming from different experiences. So you couldn't have somebody like I was who was 22 years old in the program, but I had people that had 20, 25 years of work experience, but now they care to get their master's, and I can glean wisdom from them, right? So I wasn't just a student in the classroom. I was a student when I would, be walking to the hallway or after class, and I'm talking to my fellow classmate about something, or we're going to RIP the Boston Market that used to be there. We're there to get some lunch or something. I'm learning from classmates. So I always stay a student. That's my always stay learning.
Thanks for sharing. Those are lovely words of wisdom. Thank you, Julius.
Okay.
And Dr. Liu, the final question for you. So for students that are considering completing the MPA PPA program, how would you answer the question, why complete the MPA PPA program?
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit about that before. I think MPA, Public Policy and Administration program, offers students access to a wide range of career path, government, non-government, even the third, even the nonprofit sector, right? And the other thing that I think is people can learn leadership and management skills from MPA. You might wondering, why do I need it? I just wanted to have a job. Well, it never hurts to think that we have that, right? And we actually teach that. And in today's world, I think if there is one thing that we really need to push forward is the diversity in leadership. And that's the contribution that schools like John Jay are making. And that's why I feel it's important to talk about that. several of my colleagues were saying if you have a job that comes with retirement as well as health insurance, that's a good job. They were joking about that. I think many of the MPA students will have those kind of job opportunities. And on the top of that, I would say it's easier than you think. A lot of people thinking about getting a master's degree. Oh my God, I have a life outside this. How can I get this done? But I want to tell you, it's easier than you thought, because we do offer a tons of options. As I mentioned before, in-person, online, Saturdays, and mostly the class is in the night. So give yourself a try, apply. It might open other doors for you. So I look forward to seeing your application, at the other end. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your words of encouragement. Thank you so much, Julius and Dr. Liu, for joining us this evening and talking about your experience in the MPA PPA program and why students should apply and complete the program. There were lots of takeaways, learned lots about our students and how persistent they are and how they will join this community and most likely, end up getting a job in either the private, nonprofit, or even public sector. So thank you so much, and have a great evening, everyone. Good night.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.